National University of Callao. Mauricio Villalva Jefferson Ronnie. Student code 211-951-0025. Faculty of Environmental and Natural Resources Engineering, Professional School of Environmental and Natural Resources Engineering. Email jmorishev@anac.edu.pe. Sustainable Development, Social, Environmental, and Economic Approach. Sustainable development involves a balanced and interdependent relationship between the social, economic, and environmental spheres. Therefore, the purpose of this essay is to present a critical reflection on the dimensions of sustainable development, where I express both agreement and disagreement with many of the proposed principles. Development encompasses three key dimensions: social, environmental, and economic, each of which has distinct but complementary impacts on how we manage biodiversity and natural resources. The social dimension of sustainable development cannot be achieved without considering the rights and needs of people. Without social justice, inclusion, and the participation of all groups in society, any effort to achieve sustainability will be inefficient. Various documents analyzed highlight the importance of inclusion and social equity. However, this often remains theoretical, since it is not just about stating that everyone should have equal opportunities, but about implementing real policies that change the situation in our country and around the world. Furthermore, education and citizen participation are key to achieving sustainable development. Therefore, it is necessary to implement an education that fosters awareness, teaches people to care for and protect the environment, and to live together in society. Lastly, regarding indigenous peoples and ancestral knowledge, it is crucial to recognize the role of indigenous communities. They preserve valuable knowledge about ecosystems and are often seen as passive actors when, in reality, they are active guardians of our biodiversity, many times risking their lives to continue protecting our natural resources from unscrupulous individuals. The environmental dimension of sustainable development is essential, as using natural resources responsibly and preventing pollution is fundamental. However, many of the ideas presented in the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, seem idealistic, as they are often not applied in practice. This is why they cannot be executed in reality without a solid implementation strategy, especially considering that each country has its own challenges. Biodiversity conservation is vital due to its direct impact on people. Still, as mentioned earlier, this tends to be an ideal rather than a reality, since many governments and companies continue destroying ecosystems for economic gain. A clear example is in our country, where Law 31973 was passed, which promotes illicit activities such as illegal logging and deforestation. One of the SDGs mentions the sustainable use of natural resources, but as we know, economic gain is usually prioritized over the long-term consequences for natural resources. On the other hand, preventing pollution is far better than having to remedy it after the damage is done. It is also suggested to apply the polluter pays principle, which I find fair and reasonable. However, in most cases of environmental pollution, it is not enforced, especially when large companies are involved. Lastly, ecological restoration is important since there are areas that are completely degraded but could be recovered. For this to happen, there needs to be both political and economic support. The economic dimension of sustainable development is one of the most complex. Often, it is said that we need to protect the environment or reduce poverty, but in practice, what matters most is continuing to generate profits, regardless of the environmental or social dimensions. There are different potential solutions, such as the green and circular economy, which offer more efficient, intelligent, and responsible ways to manage resources. However, we are still far from applying them. Responsible production and consumption is another crucial topic. Companies and citizens alike need to change the way they produce and consume. However, people often lack sufficient information about what they consume and its impact, and even when they do, the consequences are not always visible. Finally, strengthening local economies and creating jobs that do not harm the environment is a key point for long-term development. It is often believed that large investments bring progress to a country, but I have come to understand how some communities create opportunities through smaller-scale investments, such as responsible tourism projects or organic farming.